Yeah, thank you very much, Alessandro, and thanks for everyone who's here. This is really wonderful seeing all of you together. Some of you I met in Taiwan on this really inspiring Asia Pacific meeting, which really opened a new world to me. So thank you also for giving me this opportunity again and being here also. Yeah, Open Landscape Academy, a little bit a message from Europe. By which we also want to open doors and be inclusive and discuss more globally what our landscapes are about and what democratic landscape transformation might be. So this is a mission statement of what we call now the Open Landscape Academy. Maybe a little background on that. There's the European Council of Landscape Architecture Schools. That is 100 landscape architecture programs, universities in Europe that are working together to advance teaching and research in landscape architecture. And some years ago, we realized that there's, of course, this theme with the landscape architecture, which has its own discussions, but there's also this much broader theme of landscape, which Günther already introduced so nicely in this first speech. So it's not just something which is owned by landscape architects, it's something which is a broad societal challenge to have really good landscapes. And there's a right to landscape, and we know this very well now also from the Landscape Convention that exists in Europe and which we hope also becomes something for more global outreach. So in this mission or this vision of the Landscape Convention, we moved forward and we think about how can we actually have better capacity building for democratic landscape transformation, which really includes everyone and everything into the further development of the environment in the light of all the challenges we are facing. You all know them. They're all different, of course, in the different places you come from. And but before I go into explaining a little bit more what we mean by that, because Terence was also referring to competence schemes, I quickly changed my presentation and added this slide here, which I think is also quite an interesting message from Europe. Of course, there's a lot of research about competences and pedagogy and what we all need. And recently, the European Union has really synthesized all of this into what they call the European Union Green Competence Framework. So there's, of course, research from previous things, Week and so on sustainability competences integrated here. But I think it's a really nice visual, also a nice document, which shows you what it actually takes to become, let's say, a sustainability promoter also in the field of landscapes. So, and what is really needed. So it's about really valuing sustainability and promoting nature. So we need to know, of course, what is required. But what you see when these bees go out, so the pollen, and we heard this previously in Terence's presentation as well, how important it is to embrace systems thinking, to be critical, to be able to frame a problem, maybe also a wicked problem, which has where you need actually a design approach or an engagement to understand what a problem is, and it might lead to the next problem, and there's no single fetched solution for that. So we are always facing those. So this is a little bit of pollen that the bees are collecting. And of course, for pollination, when you go to these, to the flowers, you see there's really individual initiative that we need, but also collective action. So this mindset of really being there for an idea to put it forward collectively with the capacity of people and places. And this leads, of course, also to some sort of political agency, which we have here as well. All in line with really being able to read the future. So you see on these flowers, the future literacy, you see the adaptability, so the flexibility of maybe transforming ways of doing, collaborations, places, of course, and to explore what might be possible. And you see all of this is not in isolation. So it's something which is happening always in exchange with ourselves. It has to do with our attitude, our being in the world, and of course, our relationship to other people and actors and how they might contribute. So this is a little bit the mindset that the European Green Competence Framework has set out. It stems, of course, from research which has already been disseminated globally in earlier papers, but I think it's a really nice visualization. Somebody told me that this bees metaphor might not work so well in an international context because maybe these bees, the bees visual is a bit associated or differently in the Asian context. Somebody told me maybe I'm wrong, but maybe if somebody has a comment on that, please let me know. It would be interesting. But for the Europeans, this is not a thing with the bees. I hope it works for you as well. Okay, so let's go further. So we have all these mindsets. So we have the European Landscape Convention. We have this idea of the sustainability competences and political individual agency, all of this. So now the question is, how can we actually collect resources, build structures to help the capacity building at the global scale so that we become better promoters of democratic landscape transformation. And here are the core elements of what we think this platform is about. So if we heard this before, so really being in the field. So I think what we heard in the previous presentations already told us about the relevance of it. And we call this the local living labs. And this is something that every university or everyone who is involved here in these processes can actually do straight away. You can do it this afternoon when you get out of this meeting. So it's really about looking at the landscape which is directly around us, the people who are there, the actors, the institutions. So it's a contextualized, unique opportunity for the universities and the schools to really embrace the organizations, civil society, the public planning, the politics around us in a really long-term partnership, a long-term process where we collectively create together knowledge for better landscapes. And it's really built about really deep relations, long-term relations. And the idea is really that if you're an educator, if you run a curriculum, is that you build actually moments in your curriculum where you can reach out to your local community, where people are really engaging, they're co-creating, and this knowledge is also transferred from one year to another, so it builds up into a long-term partnership. So this is what we call the local living labs. Living labs are quite a hot topic. They're also researched. There's things like transformative science, and participatory action research, which are associated with them, very relevant for sustainability processes, and it's also a research topic. So if you are really dependent on making sure that you also have research outcomes, then you can also tap into this entire field of participatory action research and make this practice also your research topic. So out of these labs, there is what we call the stories of democratic landscape transformations. These are always unique because landscapes are always unique. There's always a unique set of people, a specific landscape biography, a specific challenge of the landscape, and the transformations which are coming up, being it social, environmental, usually mixed, economic, and so on. You name them, you know them best. But through this framework, we make them somehow documented and explainable, so they are being told and exchanged, and they are part of a collective storytelling about how we are doing this. And this is where actually the OLA platform comes in, the platform and the community, where we come to, where actually the stories are shared. But it's more than that. It's of course a platform for people, for individuals who are actually acting in that mindset. And they are doing this according to a charter which has been laid out. So it's a set of values, amongst others, empathy, inclusivity, respect, co-creation, partnerships. These are the terms which we find really relevant, in addition, of course, to landscape and democracy. And with the platform, there is, of course, it's a possibility to meet and engage, but also to learn together and to share resources. And the stories are, of course, also resources. And from that process, there's, of course, we are building theories, of course, from the ground, but also there's people who have been discussing this previously that are bringing in their theories as well. So it's a constant reflection here, new methods of how we really interact in the landscape with people. This is, I think, a methodical field which has to transform our practice. There's discourses, there's transfer, and it eventually, through the people who are engaged here, it comes back to the local places. So this is a little bit the model, and you see there's no geographical location to it, so anyone can actually join in. That's the idea, and we want to learn really globally about what's going on in the landscape. So this is the Open Landscape Academy in short. So what happens here? Of course, the principle I think is clear, but it's really about questions from the here and now that are really unique in your local landscapes. And it's not just, let's say, a documentation. It's really consciously at the interface of science and society, because landscape architecture is in fact a discipline that brings together different systems. It's the knowledge we need for deep transformation, for deep sustainability, and I think we do not necessarily have a shortcoming in what we know. We have a shortcoming in implementing and changing mindsets and practices of the environments around us. So at that interface, which is really the transfer part, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And I believe that students also need to get into this mindset and take that also as an important learning out of their educational experience. And there is a lot of room for methodical innovation, I believe, in the way how we're doing it. And this is being situated, for example, here on a really, a bus station, a typical design of the 1960s, 70s, of concrete asphalt, a very unpleasant place, but still, even if it's very aesthetically not pleasant, there's still a lot of identity in it as well from the people who are there. So what this group did, actually, they spent 1 week on this bus station to really have a deep understanding of what is really going on here, who is doing what, who has which attitude. Over the day, over the different times of the day, there's a very dynamic social environment actually on this bus station. It was mapped by means of this map and the Playmobil figures, which are they all carry a unique idea of people about this place. So you see here, there was a school class invited. They were also making a co-creative exploration of really pairing the school students with the young scientists and the students. So they would actually explore together what the place is about, where people feel comfortable, what they feel really maybe also as discomfort, to really map it in situ and to bring it then synthetically on this map with the Playmobil figures. That was a research approach, a collective co-creative research approach. And so you see this type of things are coming up when you work in that spirit, and it's not specific to Germany. It can be done, of course, in any place. And this is then was the collective map. You have our nice Playmobil figures, and each of them is carrying a message from the person and their relation to the place and what they think is there, what they think could be there, what they think is something that needs change. And this is really grounded research about how the place is actually working. And we cannot stop there. Of course, in the second step, all of this was synthesized and with a text analysis, so we could derive some design principles. Here we see Caroline and Anna, who are field researchers here, who made this wonderful documentation. Then, of course, this is then really translated from the text one-to-one into possible solutions. And this, of course, is then an important brief for the landscape architect, who can then translate this into an actual design. So from the themes, really, they also derive some design principles, which is then the ideal foundation for getting to the next step. And here you see the interrelation methodically between being in the field, being co-creative, being open and inclusive methodically, gathering all this knowledge and then processing it further. And of course, in the next steps, you can involve people as well, obviously. This is just another example of a co-creative game design with girls from the neighborhood and so on. So there's a lot to tell. I could go on for the entire day to explain about this, but this is what you actually find. You find a group of people who are really passionate about this way of working, who are really convinced that some of our practice, not all of it, but some of it needs to adopt this in order to be much more open and inclusive and situated in the places. And this is very closely linked also to political engagement. So it's not an isolated ivory tower thing. You are, of course, also in conflict zones and so on. And we are doing this right now in the place where I'm here, close to Stuttgart in rtingen. We have one in Budapest. We will meet next year also there for a bigger workshop, Athens, Bologna, and Villaggio Solidale also in Italy are involved. But it's not, this is because this is a project frame funded by the European Union. But the idea is that it really continues further and you can also get involved. So there's, and this is actually where it comes maybe also for your interest, because we have also an online platform where really this transnational community is coming together, where we want to share theories, methods, cases, and reflections about these approaches, where you can also come in with your own stories and manifestos, landscape democracy challenges. Here you see them mapped. We have this continuous Padlet map where we are collecting people and their stories of local landscape democracy challenges. And this is really exciting. It's growing each year. So there's more. So this is also a way of mapping, I think. And in terms of educational design, so here this shows my robot where these stories, these challenges actually were brought back into the classroom, and collectively in intercultural groups, people were actually reflecting, oh, how might we address this? What is actually the systemic challenge? Who needs to act? Who needs to collaborate? Which knowledge do we need to generate? So it's a very wise way of creating collective capacity by exchange. And I could imagine that many of you are also interested maybe in something like this. So of course, you're also in the field like this and are co-creating in situ. And so one interesting co-product of this is what we call the Charter for Democratic Landscape Transformation, where we have really put together all the relevant values that we think are important. And in that sense, what is really the message here, that what comes out of, for me, what comes out of it is really that there's important reflections. It's really the question of how we as so-called experts, landscape experts or whatever, how do we really enter the process? And you saw from Günther, for example, there is this 0 meter kind of approach to say the landscape is always constructed by your perception, and you bring in, of course, your own experience, your way of interpreting, of seeing. And this should give us also some, maybe, how you say, we should be humble maybe also when we get into the field, because it can be very assertive also, or perceived as assertive by the people who are there. So the question of how do we really enter? How are we partners with everyone and everything that is there in the place? How do we act upon inequalities? That is really essential. Do we follow what we are paid for, or do we act when we perceive that there's inequality reinforced by what we are doing? Are we really doing this? So this is, I think, important reflections we need to carry with ourselves. And here again, we need to understand places much better, much deeper, and having better understanding of participatory action research and co-creation techniques. I think it needs to enter the classroom all over the place, and there's very diverse ways of doing it. And here we can maybe empower a new collective landscape stewardship that involves also everyone, everything in the landscape in this transformation. And it's really about guiding these processes that makes them maybe really sustainable. Because, I mean, we all know the story across the world. Usually the solution to everything is to build new infrastructure, which is maybe a solution as long as the infrastructure works. But when you need to reorganize it and sustain it over time, and also the opportunity costs which you pay by missing the alternatives. I mean, it's complex. All right, so here you see our partners at this moment, but this is just restricted for the project. It ends also next year. So there's a website which will stay, and it will stay for you, for everyone who's interested. It's called openlandscapeacademy.org. You can follow us also on LinkedIn, Instagram if you want. And it's an open invitation. Right now we have already a student competition running on the upcoming landscape forum, which we are also doing for promoting the landscape convention. And this will also host an intensive week where we are going to practice OLA methods. This is going to be in Barz, a bit north of Budapest, in the living lab that is focusing on youth and nature experience. Yeah, so here you see where it's an invitation to join us. You want to partner with communities of diverse ages, backgrounds, and so on. Yeah, you have to.
What? Just a couple of questions for clarification. The OLA,
okay.
if someone want to join, is for free, right? Everyone can join.
Yeah, it's. I mean, let's say for free is interpreted. I mean, what we expect is a certain commitment to the idea. So if you join in this seminar, I mean, what is enriching us if you come in with your own story, and if you stay on, and if you are part of the reflection, so you pay basically with your experience, and this way you just, it's a give and take, I think, in that sense. We have set up the framework. Yeah.
And you hold the seminar more or less every week or every month? Which is the timing of the seminars?
Yeah, so maybe practically I can let you know, maybe I should close this here. So if you have practical questions.
Yes.
So practically it works like this, that so the next online platform starts again in April 2025. So we can inform the audience here about it. So we will announce it, I think, the new intake, I think in January or February. And what is, I think, also nice, of course, if you're an educator, if you can make room in your curriculum somehow and send a group of students maybe to really practice also this idea of having a living lab, or really addressing maybe local change, local transformation, and they would just go through this process and then share their experience with this global group. This is usually the way how we would ideally invite
So
people
there is
to,
like the regular seminar online, plus you got this idea of living labs, which happen inside and where the people can meet to have some experience. Is that right?
And the living labs, exactly. I mean, the living labs, we can always find ways of meeting each other. So it can be within an Erasmus program or another study or field visit of sorts. So the idea is that these living labs, if you decide to have a living lab, like I decided this in 2018, so it's 6 years ago. And I still continue. So I just made this decision. I want my university to reach out to the direct environment. I made so many acquaintances and so many projects. We have a cooperative now, a community garden, lots of things going on, starting to build a food council. So when you start doing it, don't worry, you won't get bored, because as soon as you start to engage really with a place, there's always something to do. And the topics never stop. And we simply said each semester we have a seminar that is dealing with the lab, and there's always things going on if you just continue this engagement.
Okay.
And in the seminar, we just tell about how we're doing, the challenges we are facing. Maybe if we have tried a new method, for example, the thing with the Playmobil on the bus station. So we just tell in the seminar how it worked and what was good, what was maybe not so good. And this way we continuously learn, and we learn from the places, and we learn with each other from the places. That's the interesting thing. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.